Okay, so let's say you're done with your little swatch, although we're not really done with the swatch. And it's time to bind off to get all of these stitches off of this needle and have it a freestanding piece of something. So what you would do is, now most people just take the needle that they've been knitting with and use that to bind off. And when that happens, I tend to bind off rather tightly, and so do a lot of newbies. I don't know what's wrong with me that I haven't figured out not to bind off so tightly, but anyway, so what I do is use a needle size that's bigger than the needle size of what I'm using. So I'm using a size 8 here. This is a size 10.5, and this is an 11, which 11 is kind of too big. That's a little nutty. So we're just going to use the 10.5 that's bigger than the 8. So let me show you what you do. So to bind off, you are going to go in, you're going to knit one stitch, you're going to knit another stitch, and then we're going to go into the front of the stitch and pull it over the stitch that's on there and off. Oops, and off. And now you just have one stitch. So what's happening? Let's slow-mo it down. So what's happening is you're knitting like usual, and you're always only going to have 2 stitches on the right hand needle as you bind off. And you've got to get rid of a stitch. So this stitch is the one that's going to be gotten rid of, and this one is going to be still sitting there. So you're swapping this stitch over this stitch. So you're going into the front of the stitch, and you've got to hold on, because this yarn, this needle, geez Louise, this stitch is being tensioned with the yarn. So you got to hold on to that, because if you try to pull it over without tensioning it, you're just going to pull it off completely, and it'll be just this naked stitch just flying all over the place. So just hold on to the stitch, tension it, so whichever way, works for you, and then go into, so the needle's going to look like this. You're going to be digging on in there, trying to get that stitch, hold on to this stitch, and pull this stitch over that stitch and off. Ooh, not a very good stitch. But anyway, so needless to say, it's hard to do. Especially when I'm not looking. It's good to look when you're binding off. So yeah, so into the front of the stitch, hold on to that yarn, and pull it over and off. And you do that all the way across. There's always going to be 2 stitches down to 1. 2 stitches down to 1, and after a while you will build up a chain of stitches across the top of your bind off edge that will look like the nice little V's, right? See your little V's? Isn't that pretty? And if you play your cards right, you can get the V's on the bottom to match the V's on the top, and the little V's on the side, so everybody's like little V, little V, little V, little V, all the way around, and it's a nice, neat little thing. So you continue this all the way across, and well, I don't have like speed up version on my little QuickTime here, so I'm just gonna show you how it's going across here. And when we get to the last stitch, that's where people are confused, like, what do I do when I'm at the last stitch? Well, there's and this is also by no means the only way to bind off. There's lots of, what's her name, Sally, Jessica, Barbara, Brenda, whatever her name is, stretchy. It's called the stretchy bind off. And instead of knitting into the front of the stitch, you knit into the back of the stitch. And you do this whole thing. I don't know. It's a whole nother therapy session. But there's like, you could bind off with your tapestry needle by sewing. You could use your crochet hook, but it tends to be a not stretchy bind off. And you want at least a somewhat stretchy. It doesn't have to be perfectly stretchy, but depending on what your project is, if it's something like a hat, you want to be stretchy, you might want to, use a stretchier bind off. Maybe not use a crochet hook, but if it's just like the edge of a sweater or a square that you're making, you're going to sew together squares for a blanket, then yeah, who cares if it's stretchy? There's no stretchy police that's coming after you. So, oops. So now we're getting down to the very last stitch, right? You get one stitch here, one stitch here. You knit this stitch, and then you take this needle out, but you've got 2 stitches left on here, so you keep doing the thing that you've been doing. You pull it over, and now you have 1 stitch left. So what do you do with that 1 stitch? Well, you get your needles out of the way. And then you get your little trusty, dangerous scissors that you can kill people with. And you cut a little tail. Not very long, just long enough so you can weave in your ends. Get your little chibi. Get your tapestry needle out. Close your tapestry needle so they don't go everywhere. And then, so here's what I do. Some people will, they'll thread this piece of yarn through the hole like that and tie it up. It makes kind of a bulky knot. I don't like that. So what I do instead is I literally just pull. I just pull until it just does that. And it's not going anywhere. But it makes a much sharper edge of, up this way and up that way, instead of having all this bulk from a big giant knot. So then you take your tapestry needle, fold it over your yarn, crease it a little bit so you can shove it through the eye. And then, you can go through some of those stitches to keep that boxy shape happening there. Oh, I made kind of a loop, but oh well, most of the time it doesn't do that. And then you just weave your tapestry needle through all of the stitches, and I'll make another video of just weaving in the ends. But that's how you do it when you've cast off and you're done. Enjoy your little finished project. Yay.